Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Is Remy actually Nick and Brooke's son? According to previews for The Bold and the Beautiful, Remy Price may not be who everyone believes him to be. Remy arrived on the scene, keeping Luna Nozawa's identity a secret while pursuing Electra Forrester. Since repairing Bill Spencer's air conditioner, Remy has essentially vanished from sight and communication. Could it be the cause? And why doesn't the soap even bring up Nick Marone and Brooke Logan's son? Let's discuss the plot when you finish reading. The comeback of Nick Marone. When Jack Wagner of Call the Heart returns to B&B in the role of Nick Marone. The man is the half-brother of Ridge Forrester, played by Torsten K. When Nick was last seen, he was with Brooke, helping her deal with her heartbreak. Remarkably, Nick has returned, and Brooke is grieving once more. Jack Marone is who? Fans are aware of the contentious and intricate plotline of Jack's existence in Brooke and Taylor Hayes. It's strange that neither Brooke nor Taylor have brought up little Jack in years. It seems as though the soap opera has simply deleted that chapter, as though he doesn't even exist. It would be preferable to mention that the boy passed away or is enrolled in boarding school than to act as though he doesn't exist. Fans know, fans remember. The hint from Casey Kasperzik. Little Jack left with Nick the last time we saw him. So why hasn't he been brought up? The son will not be going back with the father, according to supervising producer Casey Kasperzik, despite some fans' speculation that Nick might bring Jack to LA. But it doesn't mean Jack isn't on the canvas somewhere else. Casey did say that Nick's visit will include a reference to Jack. Now, let's see where this plot might lead. Who Remy Price really is. According to spoilers on The Bold and the Beautiful, Remy might be little Jack. Maybe Jack was a problematic child from the beginning. Perhaps this explains why neither Taylor nor Brooke ever bring up Jack, or anybody else, for that matter. Maybe he was always gloomy and headed in a horrible direction. But what if Remy is actually the kid of Nick and Brooke, given his continued presence in Los Angeles? The disturbed Thomas Forrester was the subject of Brooke's constant criticism of Ridge. What would happen, then, if Brooke had a son who was also troubled? It would undoubtedly heighten the eeriness of Remy's fixation and manipulated images of Electra. But since the soap opera has already blurred those barriers, it might happen again. What does it imply for everyone on the canvas if Remy is Jack? Once more, Eric is manipulating people. According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Eric Forrester may be attempting to influence his son Ridge Forrester to reconcile with Brooke Logan. For all the information you require, continue reading below. Once more, Eric is manipulating. While everyone knows that his true destiny is to be with a lady like Brooke Logan, Eric made it obvious to Ridge on the most recent episode of B&B that he was making a grave mistake by bringing Taylor Hayes back. Well, everyone but Ridge himself seems to be aware of it. Eric has so decided to at least persuade his son that he is making a grave error. But does it actually work? Or is Eric, as usual, simply being manipulative? The internet undoubtedly had a lot to say about the issue, as our supporters can imagine. I agree that Eric should let Ridge make his own decisions, some people have even said in their comments. However, it's amusing to hear people in soapland advise others on what they should or shouldn't do, as if their opinions count. It makes sense to put Bridge back together in soapland. Together, I enjoy them. However, the back and forth seems overdone. Eric must remain in his lane. Perhaps he shouldn't have been such a big winner and answered her calls or texts when she was trying to explain to him why she was taking the CEO position, commented another critic. He is a fool, and when it comes to him, Brooke and Taylor are also sad. Additionally, there was this comment, I was relieved when Eric finally admitted to Ridge that he had made a mistake by returning to Taylor. His Logan, Brooke, is where he belongs. Eric acknowledged that he erroneously believed Brooke was involved in FC theft. But Ridge hasn't taken any accountability yet. As he watches his Logan move one, I hope he waddles in self-pity. Long-term drama, Ridge and Brooke's reunion plan. Ridge Forrester and Brooke Logan Catherine Kelly Lang are destined to be together, but it may take some time, according to spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful. Brooke is devastated by Ridge's treachery, and Ridge is currently seeing Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig. Will these two get back together in the end? According to Ridge Forrester, he is devoted to Taylor Hayes. Since Taylor believed she was dying the last time, Ridge doesn't want to break her heart. However, one cannot expect Ridge to be faithful because he constantly switches between Brooke and Taylor. Despite Eric Forrester's best efforts to persuade Ridge to follow logic, Ridge is adamant on doing the exact opposite of what his father desires. Regretfully, Ridge might have been influenced by Eric to marry Taylor. Since they merely lived together, Eric was the first to point out that Ridge wasn't really dedicated to Taylor. Will Ridge choose to wed Taylor in order to prove his father's home? How long will it take Ridge to recognize the magnitude of his error? Ridge Forrester is committed to keeping his love for Brooke Logan a secret. Ridge is unwilling to acknowledge that Brooke and his father were correct all along and that he still harbors affection for her. Almost everyone at Forrester Creations is aware that Ridge is suppressing his emotions, of course. Ridge is aware that he has raised Taylor's expectations for their future together, and Steffi Forrester isn't going to allow Ridge to let her down once more. Ridge had previously received a warning from Steffi not to harm her mother. Ridge is scared of upsetting Taylor, who he helped heal from broken heart syndrome. For the sole purpose of proving his argument, Ridge will remain there with Taylor. But Taylor might be able to sleep with someone else. Will Ridge be betrayed by Taylor? Nick Marone and Brooke Logan get back together. At some point, Brooke and Nick Marone might get back together. Ridge and Brooke, regrettably, inevitably end up back together. The majority of fans would wager their money that Brooke and Ridge will eventually get back in bed together. When this occurs, will Taylor and Nick find peace in one another's arms? Brooke won't be packing up and leaving anytime soon, and Nick isn't likely to remain in LA for very long. There won't be much left for Taylor after Ridge shows his genuine feelings, so since she is constantly packing up and moving out of town, she might as well go somewhere unfamiliar with Nick. Why are Brooke and Taylor in such desperation if B&B Ridge isn't the hottie he was? Fans of The Bold and the Beautiful appear to agree on one thing regarding Ridge Forrester, and we're not just referring to how he handles the ladies in his life. Ridge's appearance is deteriorating. Rather, it appears that everyone agrees that Ridge is becoming less attractive. Many fans are left wondering why Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, and Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, are so smitten with someone who appears to have not taken a shower in a very long time, if you get what we mean. It's evident that Ridge Forrester isn't the polished fashion expert he once was. The internet undoubtedly had a lot to say about the issue, as our supporters can imagine. That's a point I never thought of, but I can see why you think that I have been watching the first season and Ridge was always immaculate in his grooming, but unfortunately the new version of Ridge isn't as assiduous as Ron Moss's depiction, some commenters have even said. Another fan commented, Ridge is torn between his love for his Logan, Brooke, and his loyalty to Ms. Achy Breaky Heart Taylor. Perhaps that explains his gruff appearance and the fact that he appears to have just rolled out of bed while wearing the same suit. What will happen with Ridge Forrester next? Additionally, this comment was made, yeah, but the Ridge character is meant to be a model-like attractive boy who was alluring to women. It doesn't matter how well you act. Even if TK is a greater performer than Moss, he is not a good fit for that part. Taylor and Brooke argue as Brooke tries to get Ridge to be back together. As Brooke Logan made yet another passionate plea to Ridge Forrester to get back together, Taylor Hayes rushed into the room, her eyes sparkling with treachery and disbelief, causing the tension inside the Forrester mansion to be slashed with a knife. With an emotional voice, Brooke emphasized that what she and Ridge had in common was more than simply history, it was fate. She reached for his hand and said, "You know it, Ridge." Even now, Taylor was determined not to allow her lifelong opponent to change the past or force her way back into Ridge's life without a battle. Breaking through the love haze, Taylor yelled, "Brooke, you don't get to play the victim. Once more, you've made this about yourself. Ridge and I have been reconstructing everything, but what about that?" Ridge stood motionless, clearly divided, between the two strong women who have shaped his romantic life for decades. While Taylor's voice raised in fury, demanding that Ridge open his eyes and stop falling for the same emotional trap, Brooke remained unfazed and continued to speak directly to his heart. As old scars were torn open, cheating, betrayals, false starts, broken vows, what started out as a polite chat swiftly descended into a raw, emotional confrontation. It was like a storm ready to break. Brooke argued that Ridge's heart had never really let her go, and her tone became begging, almost frantic. "Ridge, you love me. You always have." Hurt but unfazed, Taylor retorted with a scathing reminder of the honesty and peace she and Ridge had been establishing, free from deceit and manipulation. Ridge gazed between the two women, aware that whichever he decided, someone would be broken, and the room throbbed with decades of passion, suffering, and unresolved love. However, Brooke was by no means done. "It's not just that I want you back," she said, taking a step forward. "It's about you at last making the decision that your heart has always desired." The consequences of this altercation are expected to rock the Forrester family to its foundation. Playing Brooke Logan on The Bold and the Beautiful since the show's debut in 1987, Catherine Kelly Lang has become so enmeshed in her iconic role that it can be difficult to distinguish between her acting career and her role. However, Lang has never been unclear about her role in Bridge, the renownedly turbulent romance between Brooke and Ridge Forrester. "There is no other man for Brooke," she has stated unequivocally in numerous interviews and fan interactions. "Ridge is more than just a romantic interest, he is the protagonist of the tale, Brooke's soulmate, and the thing that pulls them together no matter what is going on around them." And Lang has always guarded this on-screen love with a sincere belief in its enduring force, as evidenced by her warm grin and unshakable devotion to the show's heritage. She has frequently remarked, "They always come back to each other," noting that nothing seems to stick the way Ridge does, even when the plot takes a wild turn or introduces new suitors for Brooke. This conviction isn't only emotional, it stems from years of storytelling, audience engagement, and personal devotion to the storyline of a character Lang has cultivated and adored for over 30 years. Lang has remained grounded, almost maternal, in her understanding of her character's emotional core, even when fans have become annoyed by Brooke's bad decisions or Ridge's constant indecision, particularly when he's torn between Brooke and Taylor Hayes. She once said in an interview, "Brooke is flawed, but she loves with her whole heart," admitting the criticism but defending the sincerity of Brooke's feelings for Ridge. For Lang, the complexity of genuine, long-term love is more important than moral clarity or purity. And since she has portrayed that relationship for so long, she has come to feel that Brooke and Ridge's love is a soul connection rather than merely a romantic or sexually passionate relationship. She frequently politely objects when the show plays with different love partners because of this. Even though Brooke had a brief relationship with Eric again, shared tension with Deacon Sharp, and flirted with Bill Spencer, Lang felt that none of those men ever threatened Ridge's position in Brooke's heart. She has said, "They can introduce new characters or past loves, but Ridge is Ridge." When Brooke closes her eyes at night, she wants that person. Even when the plots veered towards scandal or severed their relationship for dramatic effect, Lang has frequently been the most outspoken advocate for Bridge off-screen. Regardless of whether Ridge was married to Taylor or pursuing a younger model, Lang consistently exuded an inner assurance that Brooke would eventually return to him, and that Ridge, in spite of his hesitation, would see that Brooke was home. Lang disagrees with some fans who claim that this dynamic leads to a feeling of repetition. Every reunion between Brooke and Ridge, in her opinion, signifies a fresh development, a new level of openness, maturity, and understanding. She once remarked, "Their story is about overcoming the things that try to tear them apart, it's not just about being together." Even if the scripts may seem familiar, Lang's conviction has enabled him to keep giving Brooke depth after all these years. And Lang has a distinct viewpoint that few others could provide because of this intimate relationship to the character. She embodies Brooke Logan rather than merely portraying her. Lang has also discussed the intimate connection between Brooke's emotional path and her own life. Despite the fact that their situations are very different, Lang is a realistic, astute actress and wellness advocate. There is an emotional connection that she uses to support Brooke's feelings, her desire, and her heartache. She knows what it's like to fall deeply in love, to make errors, to put hope ahead of reason. No matter how melodramatic the plot gets, her performance remains grounded in reality because of her inner honesty. And she thinks that through every marriage, divorce, adultery, and betrayal, viewers continue to return to Bridge because of its emotional honesty. Fans have a strong emotional attachment to Brooke and Ridge as a pair, especially those who have watched from the start, as Lang has frequently noted. She remarked, "They recall the first kiss, the early days, the beach scenes, and the heartache. There is significance in the fact that it is a shared history." It's interesting to note that, despite her unwavering support for Bridge, Lang has also voiced her annoyance when the authors lead Brooke into what she refers to as destructive patterns, particularly when those patterns seem like rehashed versions of previous disputes. Although she has stated that she embraces complexity, she anticipates further development in Brooke's relationships going forward, especially with Ridge. That means strengthening Bridge, not giving it up. Demonstrating how two individuals with such a lengthy past can change, grow, and love one another in new ways as they get older. She wants the piece to show how real-life relationships mature over decades of dating, less about extravagant displays and more about quiet dedication. Lang has observed, Brooke deserves a love that lifts her up. And let it be something that develops rather than breaks if it's with Ridge, which I think it is. Torsten K's portrayal of Lang's personal devotion to the Ridge is also evident. Even while the writing takes Ridge in ways she may not agree with, she has praised his approach to the role. There is respect for one another and a feeling of unity in maintaining Bridge's human, multi-layered, and captivating qualities. This off-screen friendship, which Lang has claimed makes emotional sequences simpler and more genuine, contributes to their on-screen connection. She remarked, "Torsten brings a different energy than previous Ridges. That's good, though. I find it challenging." While some fans still yearn for Ron Moss's original performance, Lang has embraced the change with elegance, emphasizing the character's emotional continuity above the actor's features. It gives the drama a new sense of freshness. Lang rarely falters when asked if she thinks Brooke will ever fall in love with someone else. She says, "I think she could find happiness. She would never love anyone the way she loves Ridge, though, in my opinion. It's not the same." For Lang, that loyalty is what makes Brooke who she is, even though it may irritate some viewers who wish to see her escape the never-ending love triangle storyline. Brooke has no fear of falling in love. She doesn't mind falling repeatedly. She also chooses to believe in the possibility of love, even with the same man, even after heartbreak, in a world that tells women to harden and move on. Lang advocates for this belief not only for Brooke but also for the show's audience, many of whom have used Bridge's story as a mirror to reflect their own emotional journeys. Catherine Kelly Lang's ideas on Bridge ultimately come down to this: perseverance is more important than perfection. It's about two people who had loved each other more despite their terrible hurt. Who, despite their errors, nevertheless consider one another to be family. It's also about the kind of love that endures through decades of upheaval, not because it's simple, but because it's genuine. Lang believes in stories like that. She takes pride in sharing stories like that. Therefore, Lang is steadfast in her conviction that Brooke's heart, and her destiny, ultimately belong to Ridge, regardless of the author's decision to marry her off again, embarrass her, or cause her to experience yet another tragedy. Because there has never been another man for her. Not at all. Everyone's eyes used to turn when Ridge Forrester walked into a room. He was aware that he was the man that all women desired due to his flawless appearance, strong presence, and distinctive designer outfits. But now that The Bold and the Beautiful is in its current situation, fans are starting to raise the question that no one has dared to ask out loud until now: is Ridge still the irresistible heartthrob that he once was? Even the most recognizable characters have aged with time, and although Ridge is still a major role in the Forrester tale, his golden boy persona has lost some of its luster. Exasperation has taken the role of charm due to his indecisiveness, emotional instability, and frequent switching between Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes. Yet, two of the most strong, astute women on the show, Brooke and Taylor, continue to revolve about him as if he were still the sun at the center of their universes, in spite of the years, the heartache, and his waning charm. Which raises a more profound query: why do Brooke and Taylor still have such a strong desire for Ridge Forrester? Ridge has been the B&B universe's greatest romantic prize for decades. However, nostalgia is only so strong, and it becomes evident that the Ridge of today is very different from the fearless, fervent designer of the 1990s as his behavior becomes more self-serving and emotionally immature. Despite this, Brooke and Taylor, two strong, independent women with complicated lives of their own, have continued to vie for his love and attention, sometimes quietly and other times violently. Despite her iconic reputation as the show's seductress and her legendary love relationships, Brooke still views Ridge as her soulmate. Brooke holds on to the conviction that their love story is predestined, indestructible, and worth every cry, despite the numerous times he has wounded her, abandoned her, or wavered between her and Taylor. Taylor, the perceptive and caring psychiatrist, has frequently portrayed herself as the more sensible option, someone who is familiar with the real Ridge rather than just the fiction. However, she has also succumbed to the same emotional pattern, repeatedly sacrificing her dignity for the man who is unable to truly commit to either woman. The irony is strong. Ridge is now a man afflicted with emotional paralysis rather than the smoldering, slick-talking romantic lead who sparked obsession. Like a human pendulum, he alternates between Brooke and Taylor depending on the situation. He whispers that no one can compare while kissing Brooke in the beautiful candlelight. The next, he's praising Taylor's stability and compassion while they share quiet, reflective moments. Additionally, each time he selects one, it seems less like a statement of love and more like a guy trying to avoid loneliness because he is scared to be himself in the absence of a woman's adoration. It's cowardice, not romance. However, Brooke and Taylor continue to play this game in different ways, leaving the spectator to wonder, what gap are they attempting to fill? It might have its roots in Brooke's identity. She never emotionally moved on from Ridge, her first true epic love, even after all the suffering, betrayals, and years apart. Despite the fact that her life is full without Ridge, she has long linked her sense of value on whether or not he picks her. In Ridge's presence, she frequently reverts to that vulnerable young woman, begging to be noticed, to be enough, despite having raised children, established businesses, and weathered crisis after controversy. Watching it can be sad and infuriating at times. Viewers know that Brooke deserves better. Ridge, however, continues to represent a life she has always felt was hers. Rewriting the story she has clung to for decades would require letting go. Despite her poise and knowledge, Taylor is also not exempt. She is equally as emotionally involved even if she portrays herself as above the conflict. Her love for Ridge is about affirmation more than it is about passion. She has spent a large portion of her adult life striving to be the one Ridge chooses, despite her degrees and composed demeanor, as if his approval somehow validates her value. The sadness is that both women have internalized the notion that Ridge's love is the ultimate prize, despite their brains and strength. That the years of humiliation, rivalry, and heartache will have been worthwhile if he ultimately selects one of them. Even worse, Ridge is aware of this. And he makes use of it, conscious or not. Brooke looks to Taylor for solace when things go wrong. He rushes back to Brooke when Taylor sets limits. Without making any genuine, long-term commitment, he keeps both women emotionally attached to him by dangling affection like a lifeline. Fans have witnessed this pattern far too often, and it feels stale now more than ever. In addition to the fact that Ridge is no longer as captivating as he once was, Brooke and Taylor have matured past the necessity of groveling for his affection. They ought to have, at least. Long-running soap operas have a sad beauty in the way their characters develop, mature, and grow. However, they lose their poignancy and become more pitiful when old patterns aren't broken. This love triangle is currently at its precarious point. The audience is no longer supporting either woman to win Ridge. A lot of people are pleading with the show to let them both leave. Because despite his charm and history, Ridge hasn't changed in the areas that are important. His romantic hesitancy is emotionally lazy and no longer fascinating. Additionally, Brooke and Taylor's true strength and energy are diminished the longer they devote themselves to pursuing a man who is unable to provide them with stability. Nevertheless, messy love, irrational decisions, and illogical relationships are what soap operas thrive on. That's ingrained in the genre's DNA and contributes to viewers' emotional attachment. However, it might be time to change the course if the bold and the beautiful wishes to celebrate the amazing heritage it has created. Let Ridge go after them. Let him face the fact that he is no longer the alluring leading man but rather a man who took too long to make a decision and lost everything as a result. That is an emotionally charged story. Growth is that. That's the result. Until then, we watch in interest and exhaustion as Brooke and Taylor continue to believe that Ridge is the one man deserving of their love in spite of all the evidence to the contrary. Unaware, or reluctant to accept, that his days of being the center of the world may be coming to an end, Ridge, who is no longer the guy he once was, keeps enjoying the limelight. Because that's the story that fans want, and the actual plot twist will start when Brooke and Taylor understand they don't need Ridge's love to determine their value.